This is my current setup. But it wasn't always like this. Let's go all the way back to the beginning. This is the earliest picture I have of what I would call a setup. On Christmas of 2019, my parents bought me my first desk. It definitely wasn't too sturdy, but it was a start. By this time, I didn't even have a PC. I did have an Xbox One S though, that I used to play games on. My monitor wasn't even a monitor. It was my sister's old Vizio TV that, now that I think about it, why do they even make such small TVs? At what point would you need a 24-inch TV? I don't know. My headphones were some sort of Turtle Beach headset that the ear cups kept cracking and peeling, and I used my own Chromebook, which was the closest thing I had to a computer, to watch YouTube. Fast forward to my 14th birthday, where I got my first computer. It was a super cheap Dell Optiplex that I got from Walmart. It could barely run any games, but honestly I was fine with that, because now I actually had a computer. That same day I got my first actual monitor and a Red Dragon keyboard and mouse combo from Amazon. Again, none of this stuff was actually very good, but you gotta start somewhere. With the keyboard and mouse being together like $20, you would expect them to be like actual trash. But honestly, they weren't the worst. The keyboard was membrane and made of super cheap plastic, but it did its job. And same with the mouse. The monitor was a 24-inch curved screen that I actually just recently stopped using. Over the next few months, my setup slowly got upgraded, but stayed relatively the same. I moved my desk to a wall, I got myself a new headset, and I got my first actual mic, which I'm actually still using now. I also upgraded my keyboard and mouse to the SteelSeries Apex 3 and Rival 3. Eventually, after my sister moved out of her room in mid-2022, I had the opportunity to move into a room which was much bigger and had a much better layout for my setup. I ended up fully remodeling the room, and if you're interested in that process, you can go check out the video up here. Since my new room was a clean slate, I decided to get all new furniture, which means I could replace my old unstable desk and get a much better one. I went with a very common but also very good desk from IKEA. It's made of 2 Alex drawers and a 55-inch Lindemann tabletop, which gave me a lot more space and it made it much easier to make my setup actually visually appealing. This stage of my setup was actually the same one that I toured in my first video on this channel. First things first, we're gonna start with my desk. I really liked the setup and it stayed relatively the same for a while. The only thing I really did was upgrade my mouse to the Aerox 3, and I upgraded my keyboard, which was my first 60% keyboard, the RK61, which are both wireless because I started to think of more ways to make my setup look even better. A few months later, when Christmas of 2022 was right around the corner, I was wanting more and felt like I could do much better. So I planned to get a new monitor, a dual monitor mount, and a new wireless headset. When Christmas came around, it was time to set it all up. I went with a T monitor layout, which was very different to all my setups in the past. The main monitor was now a 27-inch 1440p screen, which was also new for me. For the headphones, I went with the SteelSeries Arctis Nova 7 wirelesses, which went with the wireless look I was going for. At the time, this is the peak of my setup. I couldn't imagine it ever really getting better, but there was always this one thing that would always make me disappointed in my setup: my old Dell Optiplex. To try to get you to understand how not good this thing was, let me tell you the specs. The CPU was the Intel Core i5-2400, which came out in 2011. It has 16 gigabytes of RAM, which doesn't sound that bad until you realize its speed is 1333 megahertz. For comparison, nowadays the lowest you can really get is 3200 megahertz. It had a 2 terabyte hard drive, which was also from 2011, which would always make this really bad grinding sound, and the GPU was a GeForce GT 1030. Around the same time I got all these upgrades on Christmas, I started saving up for a new custom PC. I had already researched almost everything you need to know about building a PC, and when I got all the parts in March, I was pretty confident. The building process went pretty smoothly, and after it was all put together, it was time to turn it on for the first time. The new PC was an insane upgrade, and I was pretty happy with my setup for a while. But after a year of my setup being on this 55-inch desk, it started to feel like it was preventing me from upgrading any more than I already had. So I saved up for a new desk that I would put in the opposite corner of my room, and while I was at it, I decided to completely redo my setup. Which leads us to my current desk setup. I've already made a few videos of the process and a tour of my current one. I'll put them both down in the description if you're interested. The process from that first picture you saw to now took around 4 years, and I'm pretty happy that it did. Starting from not much and working up to where I am now made each and every upgrade I made feel impactful. I hope you enjoyed this journey through every setup of mine, and I hope I gave you a bit of inspiration for your own.